Hello, people. Welcome to Grad School. My name is Aditi and I will be your VRC mentor for this session. So, inference, one of the most, I could say, misunderstood term ever in the history of CAT. Many of the people personally says that inference questions are tough, but is it really? Whatever the question is asked, whether it be a main idea question, whether it be a specific idea question, whether it be an inference question, everything is based on the passage only. So I don't think inference is tough for something. Let's look into inference. An inference is a conclusion drawn from the information given in the passage. See, like there is a passage, of course, you know that, and there are a lot of information, and then you reach a particular conclusion. And this conclusion is called inference. Let's say let's say a sentence is Akhil teaches well. From this, I can infer that Akhil likes teaching. Maybe I can infer that Akhil likes students, therefore Akhil likes his students, that's why he teaches well. So you can form n number of conclusions from a statement itself. So regarding a passage, that is a different story. It's a huge story, I would say, in my terms. So, from a passage, you can find you can infer a lot of things. You can conclude a lot of things, but the inference should be logically consistent with the passage. The inference should be logically consistent. So, what is logically consistent? You'll ask me, sir, you said, okay, logically consistent. Okay, fine, perfect. Okay, I will only draw logically consistent inferences. So, logically consistent inferences are called valid inference. Are called valid inference. There are only two types of inference. One is invalid, and the second type is valid. The valid type of inference is logically consistent, as I said earlier, is logically consistent with the data or information in the passage. And this is logically inconsistent, of course, then because it's invalid and invalid, right? Of course. So, these are the features that a valid reference will have. There are some features that you have to look for. First one, it should be supported by the passage. Whatever be the inference that you're making, it should be supported by the passage. It should be supported. Like, let's say in a passage, like obesity is major cause of heart attack. Like, say in a passage, obesity major cause of heart attack. It's written in a passage that obesity is the major cause of heart attack. You can only infer that, but you can't infer like then if you infer obesity is a major cause of heart attack, and then you like that is said in the passage, and you infer obesity is the major cause of death. Of course, heart attacks can lead to death. Of course, I got it, but that is not supported. That is beyond the scope. So the second thing is that whatever you infer should be within the scope. That should be within the scope. Like there would be like definite constraints or contours that are developed by the author. So your inference should be based on that only, and it should be free from exaggeration. You should not exaggerate or extreme language. Use extreme language. So these are the important things of a valid inference. First thing, it should be supported or it should be logically consistent with the arguments or data in the paragraph. Second one is it should be within the scope of the passage. It should not go beyond the scope of the passage. The third one would be it should be free from exaggeration or extreme language. Now, okay. Oh my god, let me take my red tick. Inference. Biggest myth I have ever heard in my life. Inference should not be stated in the passage. who made this? Like, I have seen many people asking me from the student's perspective, sir, this one was stated in the passage explicitly. So, why am I taking this? I have to infer. Let's say, in a passage, in a passage, mm, I'll say this. In a passage, is said, Mohan is Seema's father. And in the options also, you have that Mohan is the father of Seema. Now I'm adding Ram is Mohan's son. Ram has a sister Seema. So from here, when I say Mohan is Seema's father, you can't infer this. And when I say Ram is Mohan's son, and Ram has a sister called Seema, so obviously Seema will be Mohan's daughter. Or Mohan is Seema's father. You cannot infer that. What kind of logic is this? See, of course, this is obviously, if this is stated in the passage, giving them as an option is a stupid choice. But it is not that you should consider it. Whatever is explicitly stated in the passage can be directly inferred from the passage, right? People will say inference should not be like stated in the passage. There's nothing like that. Like, inference is only about the conclusion. Inference is like, there is no condition that it should not be stated. The only and only conditions for like for inference would be logical consistency and within scope. Within scope. And third one would be avoid extremes. Only these things have to be considered. So when the next time someone asks you, how did you derive this inference? This was stated in the passage. Say that whatever is stated in the passage can be directly inferred from the passage. You don't have to put your head down on it. Here it's a bit twisted. Ram is Mohan's son, and Ram has a sister Seema. So unless and until like we are talking about a stepfather scenario, that is not the usual case. Uh, Mohan is the father of Seema. That's right. That can be not, or like say A is equal to X, X is equal to B. Now you can infer A is equal to B. Wow. If I like explicitly state A is equal to B, you cannot infer that. So this is the logic that doesn't suffice. Okay. So you should always consider inferences as options that are even stated in that passage. Okay. Now, okay, of course, we do have a passage. We'll try to work out how to find an inference. This is a cat level passage. So I'll give you a second. You can pause the video here after reading. You can move to the next slide here after reading this. You can pause here and try to answer the question and then obviously come back to the video. So by now, what I would infer is that you guys have paused the video, try to attempt on your own, and then you're coming back to the passage. So let's see what is the passage talking about. It's my reading. Cognitive behavioral therapy is premised on the idea that individuals' emotional responses and behavioral patterns are significantly involved by their cognitive interpretation of events rather than the events themselves. Okay. So let's try to find out what's the essential information here. Cognitive behavioral therapy. Okay. This is the subject. Is premised on the idea. Verb. Premised on individuals' emotional responses and behavioral patterns. Okay. Are significantly involved, influenced. Again, okay, fine. Cognitive interpretations of events rather than the events themselves. Okay. So what they're saying is cognitive behavioral therapy (CBT). This is like a treatment method. Okay, For those of you who don't know, this is a treatment method used extensively in psychology for cluster D, cluster C, cluster B personality disorders that include antisocial, narcissist, histrionic, and all. So they're saying that in a person's emotional response and his behavioral patterns, like emotional responses, like triggers. There are certain triggers that lead you to an emotional response, and you have a pattern. Like some people break down, have panic attacks, and all this stuff are significantly influenced by their cognitive interpretation of the events rather than. So, what they're saying is that it's only about the event. It's not only about the event, it's more about how you interpret the event, how you take it in. Let's say it was a minor thing, but you made it a huge mess in your mind only. You heard the quote, right? It's not actually the problem, it's your thought regarding the problem. So the thing is that it was a small thing, but you're making it big. So it's like how you interpret the problem, how you interpret the event, it is more important than how the event itself is. Okay, fine. Central to this framework is the identification and restructuring of cognitive distortions, systematic patterns of bias thinking that often reinforce maladaptive beliefs. For instance, individuals response to catastrophic may interpret minor setbacks as evidence to inevitable failure, thereby intensifying anxiety and avoidance behaviors that further perpetuate dysfunctional thought cycles. So, you know what is distortion? It's deviation. So, CBT is a standard method. Like most of the people, like any of the people, like if you're going to a shrink or a psychologist, you know that this is a standardized method used all over the world. So there would be like distortions, there would be deviances, distortion from the data. There would be a bias thinking that help them reinforce the belief, like the maladaptive belief. This is that. This is really biased. Actually, for example, if catastrophizing is a disease in which it's not a disease, it's a psychological condition in which you see minor setbacks as an evidence of inevitable failure. Like say, for example, if you're a person who is catastrophizing, oh, really good word to say, right? Catastrophizing in nature, then you might see this like you failed an exam, you'd go and suicide. You would say that this is the evidence of inevitable failure, thereby intensifying and intensifying avoidance. Either you will avoid studies at all, or you would go so you commit something really not logical. So this framework is sort of biased. Like this is so standard, it hasn't considered these things. Okay, fine. However, recent research. So, however, there is a negation statement, negation word here. So let's see. In recent research, suggests that susceptibility to specific cognitive dysfunction may not be uniformly distributed across individuals, but could instead be associated with stable personality type. People who exhibits high level of neuroticism, for example, have been found to demonstrate a greater tendency towards negative interpretive biases, particularly in ambiguous situations. Similarly, individuals who characterized by rigid perfectionist tendency may more likely to engage in all or nothing thinking, evaluating outcomes in absolute rather than graduated terms. These personality linked biases can shape how individuals process information, potentially reinforcing or of patterns of thought that CBT seeks to modify. So, uh, what was the earlier thing? That it was a standard thing. It was a standard thing. uh, the cognitive distortions on the basis that deviance was calculated was standard. But now, however, what is happening? New researchers are suggesting that this may not be uniformly, maybe may not be uniformly distributed. Each individual has different type of stable personality traits. So this universal framework may not be as beneficial as like people thought it would be. For example, they're giving one thing called neuroticism. Like this is a greater tendency towards negative interpretive bias, and similarly there is also a perfectionist thing given as a second example, all and or nothing. Now what is this like paragraph saying in all? Now, they're saying that usually it was a standard deviation calculation, but now they're getting the idea that each individual may have different traits. So accordingly, you will have to modify your therapy. That is the new area of research. Like it would be more personally tailored to the needs of the people. Earlier, it was a standard deviation. Okay, fine. This has prompted some clinicians to consider whether therapeutic intervention should be adopted to account for underlying personality dispositions, while CBT traditionally emphasizes the universality of cognitive restructuring techniques. The presence of straight specific biases may influence both the persistence of distorted thinking patterns and the responsiveness to standard therapeutic strategies. So, what is happening? Now, this has encouraged some clinicians, some psychologists, some clinicians to consider whether therapeutic intervention should be adapted to account for underlying personality dispositions. Uh, Now they are trying to, like, now personality dispositions means personality deviations, dispositions, it's not deviations, dispositions means what your personality is, your belief, your undertaking, that is your disposition, right? So whether the individual personality should be considered as a when you are doing a therapeutic intervention, like traditionally emphasizes the universality of cognitive restructuring as a person of state specific may influence both the now earlier it was a universal structuring technique without giving much importance to the personality disposition of the individual personality. Now they are thinking that this individual personality, like say I'm a positive guy, you're a negative guy, or vice versa. Positive guy has a common belief that there is light at the end of the tunnel. In the negative, I also believe that there is no light at the end of the tunnel. So, like treating me and treating you in the same manner, for like say we both are under anxiety, one is a more positive kind of archetype and the is a negative kind of archetype. So treating us both in the same way would not make sense. So you will have to also account for this personality dispositions that helps in the persistence of distorted thinking patterns and responsiveness. Like your thinking patterns, if you are positive, would be different, and your responsiveness to therapy would be also different. So this should be like they are encouraging to consider this also. Consequently, there is growing interest in examining whether integrating personality sensitive approach within CBT frameworks could enhance the effectiveness of interventions, particularly for individuals whose cognitive biases appear to be closely aligned with enduring personality. Now, there is also growing interest on what? They're integrating personality sense approaches. What is like they do a personality test and they integrate it within the CBT frameworks that are formed earlier, so that could enhance the effectiveness of interventions, particularly for individuals whose cognitive biases appears to be closely aligned with another. So let's leave this. This is this is something that talks about the personality, like individuals whose personality traits it aligned, like when in the personality test. So how does this does it enhance, does it increase the effectiveness of the interventions? That is the question. So let's see the question. Which of the following can be inferred from the passage? Good. Let's see. Individuals with high neuroticism are less responsive to cognitive behavioral therapy. See, there is a problem here. I'll show you. Mm, mm. This is a narrowing down. They say that some traits, people with some specific traits, are maybe, not are, maybe less responsive. The paragraph says that personality traits, some personality traits maybe, not are, maybe less responsive See, we don't have enough substantiating evidence that people with high neuroticism are less responsive to cognitive behavior. There is no data that suggests that way, so I'm going to eliminate this. Personal traits, I'm sorry. Personal traits may influence the nature and persistence of cognitive distortions targeted by CBT. Okay, this is something that is good. Personal traits, of course, personal traits and personal dispositions, correct, may influence the nature and persistence. Okay, now they're saying may influence. That is also right because all there was no saying that will influence. That's always may. Let's say, see here, is premised on the idea that however reasons is susceptibility. Susceptibility to specific may not be, always may. So this is a balanced tone. Tone is also good and good. Of cognitive distortions. Okay. Okay, personality traits and cognitive distortions may influence each other targeted by CBT. Cool. This is a good inference. I'm keeping it here. It almost combines every idea there. It's a good inference. Let's see if I have a better one. CBT techniques are ineffective in addressing biases rooted in stable personality traits. See, this is an alien concept. There was no talking about addressing biases rooted in stable personality traits. The whole passage was talking about how personality traits may or may not affect the practices in CBT and how it is evolving. So this is absolutely not my option. This is an alien concept. Cognitive distortions arise primarily due to inherent personality characteristics rather than situational factors. Hmm. Cognitive distortions arise primarily due to inherent person. No, right? Both are really important, right? Uh, of course, if there is a situation and how you perceive the situation is really important, but the situation is also important primarily due to inherent personality characteristics. No, how you perceive that situation, it's not only primarily due to your personal personality characteristics. So this is something which is like beyond the scope of the passage, like which is more important, which is less important, that is not said. The only thing that is said is like not only the situation but how also you perceive how you perceive the situation is really important. So this is also something beyond the scope, as I would say. This is also not a well inference. So B would be my answer. So that is all about inference. So when you are making inferences, only check for three things. One, is it supported by the passage? Is it within the scope of the passage? It should not be exaggerated or extreme. So good day, people.